The year is 2005. You just hit up the nearest Hot Topic to buy your I Love Boobies bracelet, you're blasting Nickelback out of the CD player of your crappy Honda Civic, and you're on your way home to play a game that can only be described as edgy. We're talking about the OG Shadow the Hedgehog, a video game that I feel just really represents the darker and more mature tone that most forms of media would take throughout the early 2000s, which when you think about it was roughly 20 years ago. Dear God, I'm old.
Dang kids.
We'll not only be taking a look at my most recent playthrough of the OG, but also his newest entry that came out just this last year.
So rev up your motorcycles, my fellow grungy gamers,
as we take a look at all things Shadow the Hedgehog. Before I started my replay of this game, I tried to remember where I was when it originally came out. Going off the year, I would have been around 10 years old at the time. And I just thought to myself, how was little baby Andy able to walk out of a GameStop with a video game cover that looks like this? With the game case featuring our favorite depressed hedgehog wielding a Glock on the front cover, it's technically only rated E10 and up, which you just know would not fly by today's standards. In fact, it doesn't because they completely ditched the guns in the newest entry. But we'll come back to that later. I originally remember learning about the game through watching the iconic intro on YouTube, and at the time I was just like, oh my god, he killed Sonic! But he's kinda cool. As I said earlier, a lot of media from this generation not only looked darker, but was also just more graphic in nature. This game definitely took a lot of inspiration from what was popular at the time like Call of Duty and GTA San Andreas. The creators even said they were inspired by movies at the time like Underworld and Constantine, which, yeah, definitely checks out here. I wouldn't be surprised if they took further inspiration from The Crow or even the Blade trilogy. Anyway, 2005 would continue to see its fair share of adult-centric video games. Even Mario was doing some weird stuff this year, like straight up ballin'. Speaking of Mario, which is kinda off topic, but I did feel the need to share this really distinctive memory. I just remember overhearing my fellow students talk about the fact that it was only a matter of time until Mario starred in his own Call of Duty style game. Which in hindsight, I'm really glad never happened, but I digress. Let's get back to our favorite emo hedgehog. As a small little baby boy, I remember playing Shadow the Hedgehog once and not picking it up again. One of the big reasons being that Shadow was constantly saying damn or hell. And even though I was technically of age for this video game, it didn't stop my super religious family members from giving me dirty looks whenever he shot out a light expletive. I just remember being really frustrated with a lot of the gameplay scenarios here. My younger self was 2 deaths away from throwing out some creative swear words himself. So as you can tell, I don't have a ton of fond memories of this game as a child, but as an adult, I find it pretty fascinating from a timepiece perspective. Either way, my favorite aspect of the game has got to be the soundtrack. The songs not only match the dark atmosphere, but are also on par with a lot of the dad rock bands that were huge at the time. Shout out to Crush 40, who not only introduced me to the awesome tracks from this game, but also made me fall in love with the many great, albeit sometimes cringy songs from the other Sonic games as well. I also completely forgot the game not only features alternate endings, but also different story paths, which feels really progressive for the year that it came out in. There's roughly 326 alternate paths that can be taken in this game. However, I found that a lot of the story paths don't necessarily make sense. One of the biggest examples happens in Cryptic Castle. You're presented with the choice to either help Amy, who's trying to find Cream in the castle, or you can help Eggman light a bunch of satanic torches. I was going for the bad route in this scenario, so I chose to help Eggman, who ended up turning against me after the level for no discernible reason. And even though I completely ditched Cream to suffer alone in the spooky castle, Amy still ended up being the person to help me in the boss battle against Eggman. I also found that a lot of the cutscenes don't really change with each playthrough, which was kinda disappointing, but again, all of it is still fairly innovative for a game that came out in this year. It certainly adds a ton of replay value, if only the core gameplay wasn't such a huge downer. My 10-year-old self definitely had the right of it, because gameplay-wise, this feels really rough around the edges. The good is that the actual weapons, which were obviously the biggest selling point of this game, worked pretty well for the most part. I had a ton of fun mowing down enemies with AKs and Eggman-looking bazookas. The game also has vehicles, which doesn't really make sense considering they're significantly slower than Shadow's normal run speed. You've also got the classic homing attack, which has been a staple in all 3D Sonics, but it just feels really awkward and clumsy to use here, especially because there's no reticle that will tell you whether you're going to hit an enemy or not. It always just felt like a 50-50 chance whether I was going to actually hit an enemy or get my ass beat. No, I just saw the exit. Okay. Oh, mother. Oh my god. I need some rings. Oh, I can't see this targeting system. My other really big complaint is they designated the X button as spin dash, switch weapon, and fast travel. And the game always seems to prioritize spin dash, which in turn always led to me fully yeeting myself across the course. And then there's also wall jumps too, which sounds like a really cool idea, until it's not. No, fuck! And by far the worst aspect is the actual mission design of each level. You can rush through the level in classic Sonic style, which will give you all the neutral routes, but if you want to go for the good or the bad boy route, you need to fulfill certain mission requirements for each level, which ultimately boils down to defeating a certain amount of enemies or collecting a certain amount of objects in each level. And I feel like this just really kills the pacing when it comes to getting the best times on levels, especially if you miss something and you need to backtrack to find it. Last but not least, I gotta talk about the bosses because, whoo boy, these were frustrating. Oh, there's...
Not here.
God damn it. What? Oh man, this is all gonna come down to whether the homing attack actually works or not. Let's make a boss, but with slot machines. What a fun idea, guys. I swear to God, this is what the guy in the video did. Like, he just sat here and spammed him. I feel like a fucking crazy person right now trying to do this. Like, what the fuck? What is the strategy here? Even though I wasn't a huge fan of the gameplay mechanics, there were still some really fun moments here. I also love that every time you clear a playthrough, you're treated to a new Dad Rock song during the credits. Don't ever let me connect to your speaker, because I will consistently blast The Chosen One any chance I get. It's obvious that fans also saw the hidden potential within this game, because they would later mod it to clear up some of those rough edges that I talked about earlier. Sadly, we would never see this moody hedgehog in his own video game again until 20 years later. R2 to boost? Whoa! I'll be honest, I didn't have high expectations going into this game, especially because most modern 3D Sonics have been kind of a hit or miss for me. But goddamn, this is one of the best 3D Sonic games I have ever played. Sonic Generations is pretty good, but it doesn't feel nearly as clean or as polished as this bad boy. I don't know how they did it, but every level both feels and looks amazing. It's one of the only Sonic games that I've felt compelled to get S ranks on every level. There's only 6 levels, but each one just has this amazing flow to it. I never felt like I ran into any sections that slowed me down or presented really frustrating platforming moments. It just felt really good to fully boost yourself through certain sections to the point where you're completing levels in less than 5 minutes. Even the overworld hub feels like this giant skate park for you to run around in and perform cool tricks with Shadow's new abilities. I am a little sad that they removed the weapons in this, but the upgrades that Shadow receives feel like a pretty worthy trade-off here. You've got Doom Spears, which are essentially the guns of this game. You can completely obliterate certain enemies and fully yeet them across the entire stage. He's even got the Manta Ray from Mario Galaxy, but without the crappy tilt controls. All of these upgrades work extremely well, especially when it comes to the boss fights. Woohoo! Oh my god. Oh yeah. The story is okay. It gets pretty sappy and overly dramatic at times, which honestly is kind of par for the course for most modern Sonic games, but it's pretty easy to ignore when the focus is on these super fast-paced levels. All of this just makes me extremely excited to see what Sega has planned for the future. If they could take the engine and the physics from this game and craft them into a fully fledged game that's more than 6 hours, I am all on board. Without light, there's only darkness, but a shadow can help you find the light. The light at the end of this yacht, cream, kill him.